It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, April 2nd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is wondering if the Flyers should look more to the college game for some potential prospects.
I think so.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we are going to dive into some more free agents, maybe a coach available at the NCAA level, as well as some draft eligible prospects later in the show. I do want to follow up on a couple of players and kind of what Brad Shaw is saying about them, which is different, I think, than what John Tortorella had said in the past. And I think it was interesting. So on Bobby Brink in particular, after the Preds game, Brad Shaw was asked about Bobby Brink and said that he was relentless and that most aspects of his game were at the NHL level. He's, in on the puck battles. His reads are really good to take away attack. He can read his line mates. He has good anticipation, and that he, along with that Kate's line, is the best checking line and the most consistent line for a full game, but also mentioned that he might try puck plays that may not be there. And that's really the only issue that Brink still has on the regular. And I thought that was interesting because, I think Torts just wasn't that specific about what Brink had to improve on. It was just that he wasn't quite there yet. But this is a very specific thing, right?
Yeah, it is. And I do think he does try some crazy stuff, for lack of a better term. And yeah, probably needs to dial that back once in a while. You don't want to kill a guy's creativity. But he also, the last couple of years, has stayed away from injuries. He used to put himself in harm's way. And I think he's kind of figured out, at least for the moment, how to forecheck, but not like recklessly. Because sometimes there's still a couple of shifts where Bobby Brink can be reckless. And it's not like, it's reckless, bad reckless. It's just, that's the way he plays. And you just, he won't have a long career if he did that every shift. But I do think there's improvement there. And so I think Brad's right.
Yeah, I just think that it's interesting because we've observed these things over the course of the season and as that line has developed, but it just wasn't clear what Brink was missing from what Torts wanted from him. And I think that, this is just really, I think, helpful for him, first off, to know exactly what's missing. And, obviously we don't know what conversations had taken place behind the scenes, but we have seen this steady improvement from Bobby Brink all season. And that's good to see Brad Shaw kind of acknowledge the specifics of it.
It is good.
In the most recent game. The other player I want to touch on here is Ryan Poehling, because we talked about him on yesterday's show in that game recap and kind of the tear, for lack of a better word, for Ryan Poehling, I would say.
Yes.
He's been on a tear these last few weeks, and it's been really good to see. And we brought up the question yesterday of if we think Ryan Poehling can start a season this way. And so I went in and pulled his splits by month over the course of his career thus far. And it is really interesting. He seems to be a guy that peaks in November and then again in March, if you look at his scoring, right?
Yeah. And some guys are like this, and it could just be that's the way he's going to be. And if that's going to be the case, then it's going to hurt him a little in his career, because consistency all the way through a season is what coaches are looking for. This is okay if you're on a team that is always on a playoff push at the end of the year and you help make that. But for the most part, coaches are kind of like, no, they want to see more consistency.
Yeah, it is interesting because you look at his goals scored again over the course of his career. He's got like 200 some games under his belt, and in the entire month of October, he's got one goal for all the years he's played in October, and
I think
then
I
in
can
no,
explain that though, because I think
yeah,
there were at least a couple of seasons with the post concussion where he may have gotten hurt in preseason, where he may have had a
right.
lingering injury from the previous season. So I think there's a little explaining for that, but most of it's not. You can't explain it.
Yeah, that's in 28 games. But then you look at November and he's got 10 goals in 51 games.
Right.
So, he's picking things up. And then he's got a dry spell in December, January, February, where he only has 11 goals total over those 3 months. But then he's got 11 goals in just the month of March. It's just a really bizarre thing. And I think, it's something that he does need to work on in terms of the consistency. And again, to your point, injury does play into it. But I sure would like to see a season from him next year that is more even in terms
Yeah,
of.
I think we all would. Otherwise, he could turn into like Mike Sillinger, and every trading deadline gets traded because every team has these same numbers and say, okay, yeah, he's
Yep,
worth picking up at the deadline. Like it could
it's
be like that.
true. It's very true, but just really fun numbers, I think, about Ryan Poehling. So I wanted to bring those up. Now, switching gears to talk again about NCAA Frozen Four. Here we have the four teams: Denver, Western Michigan, of course, where Alex Bump plays; Boston University, where Devin Kaplan plays; and Penn State are Frozen Four. Now, for Alex Bump, he doesn't have any points so far in the Frozen Four tournament, but I think he's played well overall.
Yeah, he's had a really good year. I just, again, just say to people, don't get too excited about what his coach says. When you watch him in games, there's some plays that he's scoring on that are going to be much harder to score on, even in the AHL and especially in the NHL. But no, he's had a very good year, and it was a good year of development. I think there's just a slight improvement in his skating, but not enough to where I'm going to tell you that it's really, really good. So I think that's he still has a little bit of heavy feet. It's just not as bad as it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then Devin Kaplan has an assist so far in the tournament, which is good for him. Again, we've said he's a much longer term
He's a much
project.
longer, yeah.
So we're still not sure if they're going to sign him,
No,
but I think we need another year to know for
definitely.
sure.
Definitely need another year on him. I think he has to show more offense. Otherwise, he's going to be in this lumping of like just fourth line guys, potential fourth
Yeah.
line guys.
Yeah. And then one of the coaches that has come up in the conversation that maybe the Flyers should take a look at is that Denver coach in David Carl, of course, the brother of Matt Carl, of former Flyers fame. And he has been a really successful coach at Denver. And, he's only 35 years old. And so still really young in the coaching game. And I think, he would be a really interesting option, but I just doubt that he'd be willing to leave Denver right now.
Right. Yeah, he's won championships with Denver. He's won, with the US program. He's won a World Juniors. Super successful. I dug into it, and besides having 2 years left of a contract, which I think the Flyers would have to buy him out of, and the university would have to agree to it. That's a stumbling block. And then the other belief is that he would have some asks, and the Flyers would have to meet those too. So I just think it's not a place he's even looking at. He might talk to them in the future. I don't even think he would talk to them this year, just simply because his team is on such a good run now. They're in the Frozen Four. They're going to go through whatever they're going to go through. I just don't even think they'll even, get a chance to talk to him. But I don't think he's going to coach in the NHL soon.
Yeah, I just think that there's too much for him to lose by
Right.
leaving Denver at this point. That give him another like 4 or 5 years and then he'll think about it.
Correct.
Because it's a cushy job at a really great school. He's going to get top recruits. Like,
Yep.
what is in it for him to leave at this
Right.
point? All right. Now, the Flyers did get Karsen Dorwart, who was ranked number 1 on the athletic list of prospects. Although I don't know, Russ, you might not have ranked him that high in terms of the college free agents.
I mean, I
right?
didn't really rank them all. I think he was among the top 3 or 4 to get. I do.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And so, we had brought up a couple of other guys that are still available, in past shows about this. Albin Boya, who's the goalie for Maine, they were eliminated from the tournament. He's Swedish and has had like a really strong career at Maine these last 2 years. He still has 2 years left of eligibility, though. And do you think he'd be willing to bring that up?
Right
Give that
now,
up?
I do think he'd be willing to give it up. He's at like a 930 save percentage. He was a big reason Maine was there. He just is effortless out there as far as his positioning. He's smart. He reads and reacts well. His stick is really good. He's a very calming influence there. And I think that, a team that shows interest, I think he might jump at it because, again, it's not like Maine is this powerhouse where they could win next year. They'll probably be close again, but if he's there. So I just feel like he could be had. And if I was the Flyers, I would go for him because they definitely need mid-range goalies that don't need the same development cycle that someone you draft this year or even some of the guys in the pipeline.
Interesting. Yeah, I just wonder if they're gonna try and see what they could do in the draft for a goalie
That's 4 or 5 years. Maybe it's
I know.
3 if it's just, a Cinderella story. So it's like that doesn't really work with the timeline if you think about it. It's something they
It's
should
true.
do, but it doesn't work with the timeline.
Yeah, and then, TJ Hughes from
Mhm.
Michigan.
Yeah, Hughes is a really good player. I mean, I've watched him for years. He is a center. He's a 6-foot guy. He can skate. He's a clutch performer. He scored in his last few games with Michigan. Yeah, they didn't make the tournament. They got edged out, but he scored. He plays against good teams. He does well. He's a leader. I spoke to Michael Haig about him recently, and he loves TJ Hughes, says he was a big influence on him. Like, this is the kind of guy you get, and it's like, he helps your AHL team instantly, and he might make your NHL team because he's an overachiever.
All right, sounds like a very good option. We'll see what happens with him over the next couple of weeks. There are more guys in college to keep an eye on, but these are draft eligible prospects, and we are going to talk about them coming up next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, and each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're backed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And personally, I love the no shells variety. They're the perfect grab and go snack for those busy days. I have them at my desk while I'm working. I have them when I'm on the go. And recently I had some friends over for a movie night. Instead of popcorn, we passed around bowls of a variety of flavors, which everybody loved. But the Wonderful Pistachios, chili roasted no shells, and the sea salt and vinegar no shells were the biggest hits for sure. So delicious and healthy too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch, so get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. On tomorrow's show, we're going to continue our prospect discussions and check in on Karsen Bjarnason and Jack Berglund, who is back from injury. So that is good to see. And then we are going to talk about draft eligible prospect Lyndon Likovich. So that should be a really fun group of guys to dig into. Russ, you have been doing some digging, and we're going to get into some draft eligible prospects in college hockey right now, including Charlie Cerrato from Penn State. But there's some other Penn State news out there.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with Jay Paterno, and he's on the board of trustees for Penn State, besides being an expert with NILs, and that article will come out. But we were talking about hockey. He was there Sunday night. He's thrilled for Penn State. And then we talked a little more hockey, like outdoor hockey, that I have an interest in. And I had always heard that, people would like to get a game at Penn State, the fans and otherwise. And then we heard some rumors like, maybe it was on the plate. Well, they had 2 discussions that got very close. And so
Interesting.
right now with Beaver Stadium going under a $700 million renovation for the next 2 years, 2027, 2028 could be a year, would probably be a stadium series because of, Penn State always being in a
Right.
bowl game. But he would like to see Flyers Penguins. He said that town is split Flyers Penguins from where the kids come from, and it's very rabid for hockey. And I'm looking forward to it. And he basically said, "Well, I'll see you there when the game happens." Like, he wants to see it. He really wants it. So I'm hoping they get it.
Yeah, me too. This is something people have been clamoring for years,
Forever.
and it's always been a no-go because of the stadium and its condition. But
Right.
with the renovations, could be a good thing. Looking forward to that. But meanwhile, they are in the Frozen Four, Final Four,
Mhm.
and Charlie Cerrato is on that team. He's a 6-foot forward, but he's an overager. He's 20 years old. So he's a guy that would kind of be a later round, take a swing kind of player, right?
Yeah, I would take him. Really, I would take him anywhere from the third round on. I think he's better than a little bit better than take a swing. Because if you go back and look at him, I remember watching him with the NTDP, but he just didn't get a real chance there. And through the magic of the transfer portal, or some people don't like it, but he ended up with Penn State, and he looks great. Like, he's a fire starter out there as far as being a playmaker. He has a whip of a shot. His skating is real good. You can't be on Penn State and not be fast. They're one of the fastest teams you'll ever watch. And decision making is really good. He had a big assist in the final game, sending them to the Frozen Four on that overtime goal. He just always seemed to be in on the action, and he's had a terrific year. And yeah, you're getting a 20-year-old. So, there's an advantage in that too.
There really is. And, he spent some time in the USHL with
Mhm.
Youngstown.
Mhm.
And before that, spent time with the National Team Development Program.
Mhm.
And so he has a really good pedigree. He just didn't click at the right
Correct.
time. And now he's there with 42 points in 37 games for Penn State this season. A real good track record. And you're right. Sometimes taking an overager, in the third or fourth round is a really good option. And again, with the Penn State connection, I think that's
Oh yeah.
something that's appealing to the Flyers. So that is pretty cool. We have already talked about James Higgins on a past show on October 24th. We talked about Cullen Potter from ASU already, that are college guys that are draft eligible. They are both on our spreadsheet of draft prospects that we have covered so far, with links to the shows where we talked about them. The link for that spreadsheet is in our show notes, as well as pinned to our main social media channels. So if you want to see what we had to say about them, we encourage you to go back into our archives. And, depending on how the lottery goes, we may have to revisit a guy like James Higgins, but
Oh
to
yeah.
be determined on that front. But there's some other guys that we haven't talked about yet that are college players that are up for this year's draft. And Sascha Boumedienne from Boston University is one of them.
Yeah, I think he's been on my list from the onset, and he's kind of creeping up a little bit. Big defenseman, Swedish. There's a lot more Euros now coming to colleges, and it's a smart move because they could go to class, they could work out, and still play in a D1 program. So yeah, he's a really good puck mover. He's smart. I think he has a frame that he could put more more muscle on. He's not a tremendous offensive player, but he's a good offensive player. I mean, I think he has 13 points, something like that this year, which is good. I mean, as a freshman player, that's good, but I think it will improve. I think you're probably looking at 35 points or so, but he's a raw player. So sky's the limit as to sometimes what could happen with some of these guys. So he's somebody you definitely would look at. Like, if you're the Flyers, you look at him maybe with your third pick. You have 3 first-round picks. This may be a reason to use one of them on a guy like this.
Yeah, and I saw his ranking was late first round to early second round. So, you do think about taking a swing with a late first round pick there. And another option for either the Avs or Oilers pick, depending on where they end up, could be Logan Hensler of Wisconsin. He is a 6'2" right-handed defenseman, and does have Team USA experience, has played in World Juniors, and had 12 points in 32 games at Wisconsin this year.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because it always seems like, first off, he's always playing up in age. So, and he's doing that again, as a freshman defenseman, it's hard. It's really hard. He's in a tough conference. So he's not going to be like a point a game guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's rare. We know that they exist, but as a freshman, especially, it's ridiculous. But what he can do is make smart decisions. He's a really good puck mover. He's got a terrific shot, but again, he's an 18-year-old with a team that has 23-year-olds, so you don't really get power play time. And so a lot of the offense that he has isn't really having a chance to shine through, but he's effortless out there. He does everything well. And the thing is, he will just continue to develop and develop and develop. So he is a guy with the second first-round pick that you would have to consider if you're the Flyers.
Right. And I think being at University of Wisconsin is just an ideal place to develop a defenseman over the next couple of years. So he could potentially, spend 2 more years at that school, come out his junior year, and be in a really good position to join the Phantoms. And that's how you want to draft and develop your defenseman. That would be like not your, top 5 pick, right? Your late first round,
Correct.
second round guy. That's the path, right?
Yeah, that is the path. And this draft, while there's a breadth of defensemen, he's one of the more higher end. I have him, I think, as the highest end of second next to Schaefer. I think that's where I have him on my list. So I think a lot of them, but it's not all offense. You're not going to see that offense right away. And it may not be super high end offense, but everything else is very high end.
All right. Well, we have a ton of your mailbag questions, especially your comments related to the Torts firing. Very excited to get to all that. We're going to do it coming up next.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could just use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And you'll find things you never knew about in your spending habits. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off for your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
All right. So the comment section and mailbag were quite full this
I bet.
week. Related to the Torts firing. I would say, some comments were worried about who the next coach might be. Some comments were nervous about winning too many games out and missing that top 5 pick, which is a valid concern.
It is.
But the vast majority of comments were very happy that Torts is gone. And I think that, he did do some good with this team and helped some guys develop, but just like we've been saying, there was just something missing with what he was doing over the last couple of months, and it just seemed like the right time.
Yeah, it was the right time. You could make an argument maybe it could have happened a little earlier. That's fine. That's nitpicking. I mean, the Four Nations kind of really shone a light when he came back. We talked about it, how there was just this disconnect, and clearly he just didn't want to do this type of coaching, which is something we talked about when,
That's fair.
Yeah, when Danny took over, that it was going to be a struggle with that. And so, yeah, I expected the fans to be happy. I know there are players that are happy, and that's the way it is. When John goes, there's always going to be those players, a few that stand up and say he made me better. Then there's going to be those other ones that are like, I'm glad he's gone, but they usually don't say it publicly. And then there's a bunch in the middle too. Like he's a polarizing guy.
He is. Michael's 2502 commented about the kind of coach that you want, saying, I feel like you can have a hardworking team that's built on a strong work ethic without making everyone on the roster hate your guts and hate playing the sport. You need a guy who inspires hard work without inspiring hatred. And, polarizing, I think, is different than hate.
Yeah.
I will make that fine distinction, but I think it's a fair point.
No, it is a fair point. I think just look at the Capitals and Spencer Carberry. I mean, that's been seamless. that's sort of an ideal path to take. Is Danny Briere looking at that? I don't know, but he certainly should, because that's worked out really, really well for them.
Right. And then Brendan asked us about Brad Shaw. Is it me, or is the first few games of the post-Torts era where the Flyers look like a much faster team? Is this a matter of Shaw loosening the reins, or the players simply rebounding?
Well, I mean, it is with Shaw loosening the reins, also giving him a little more offensive freedom, which he's talked about, and also not having Torts there, meaning that you don't have to play defense first every second of your existence. I think all of that is the reason.
Yeah, I think so. But lots of good stuff from y'all out there. Keep it coming as we enter this nebulous era where we don't know who the coach will be
Right.
next year. If you have suggestions for potential coaches, let us know. We'll be happy to talk about them. Joseph DeAngelis commented and asked us about what the Flyers are going to do to get that 1C and defenseman, which we all know, as Joseph says, any team that wants to contend for multiple years, which Briere and Jones say they want to do, needs, if it's not tanking to get a top 5 pick this year, then how do they get those players?
It's hard. I mean, sometimes you don't get them for a very long time. They're not going to get a number 1 defenseman in this draft unless they draft first overall and they decide they're going to take Andrew Schaefer. So that's not going to happen in the draft. That's not going to happen in the offseason. The 1C is one of those things where you're going to try and get a guy in free agency and turn him into a 1C. Like when the Rangers got Mika Zibanejad, he was not a 1C. They turned him into a 1C, and he's been a pretty good one, but he's still on the middle of the road kind of 1C as far as the center duties. As far as offense, that was a different story. So I don't know. There's guys like Gabe Velarde. You could try and, sign to an offer sheet. There's things that are out there, or try and trade for him. There's things out there that you could try and do. Actually, I think for Velarde they would trade for, because he's an RFA still, I think, for 1 more year. There's things like that. But again, these are hard things to do. And if you do make these trades, you're going to have to give up somebody good. So as an example, if you're trading with Winnipeg, right? It's Winnipeg where Velarde is. If you're going to trade with them, and let's say he is that guy, you're probably trading Cam York. Like that's what it's going to take. And it would be more than that. But I'm just saying that's going to be the basis of the trade. So it's going to put you in a better spot in that one area, and it's going to set you back temporarily in the other area. That's the way it's going to be. Those are the 2 hardest things to fill in hockey, other than a number 1 goalie. Like those are the 3 things. So, you have to pretty much have that, or have most of that, to be very competitive in this league.
Yeah, it is really hard to trade for those roles. Those are a draft and develop kind of position.
Those are the ideal ways to do that. Yes.
Right. And the Flyers have not been in the best position to get those guys through drafting and developing. Now, maybe they could have on the defensive side of things, with your favorite topic, Russ, on Zeev Bayum.
Yeah.
However, the Flyers have not done that. So maybe there's an opportunity this year. We'll see how the lottery goes. But I think,
I mean, that's a big thing. There are
tough.
number 1 centers in this draft, so they definitely have a chance at one. But they're not bona fide number 1s. They're most likely number 1s. But that's fine. That's what Jett Luchanko is too. You get another one of those guys, I think you're doing okay. So, that's probably the move that they want to do.
Right. Now, speaking of Jett Luchanko, at Rora3813 asks, if Jett Luchanko was in this year's draft, where would he be selected in the first round? Would he be in the top 5?
He'd be in the top 4. And again, this is what I always say. The hardest thing, I could tell you Jett Luchanko would be the first overall pick, but it depends on the team picking him. So Luchanko would be the number 1 for these 4 teams. James Hagens would be the number 1 for these other 4 teams. Andrew Schaefer would be the number 1 for the rest of the teams. Like, that's kind of how it goes. So, and that's how this draft is going too, with the top 4. You could just start rotating them in and out, because all different teams are going to have different opinions.
At Lucky Me on Blue Sky asked us, related to the Lehigh Valley coaching, and we've talked about that a lot over the past several years, let alone months. But he wants to know, what demon do I have to summon for the Flyers to hire someone like Brad Ralph for Lehigh? 3 straight Kelly Cups with the Florida Everblades is a damn good resume.
It's a really good resume. you would hope that they would look at somebody like that, but I don't know. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure. I don't know if Lappy will, get out of this alive, but I don't know if they're looking at that either. And I do want to correct something. I said Andrew Schaefer before. It's Matthew. I've been jumping between shows here, so my mind's a little out there.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think we've talked about this. Now that Torts is gone, I am curious to see if they're going to keep Lappy around for some consistency. And if they get a new coach that does communicate with him, maybe it'll be better because they'll have a different or more consistent system in place across the board, right? But if that's not going to happen, and let's say the Phantoms get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, I think there's reason to make a change there too. And then maybe you want to look at the whole coaching ecosystem holistically. I think Brad Ralph is a really good option that should be on the table. I
Yeah, they
mean,
have a great fan base. Sorry, in Florida. I know there's a
they
lot of people
do.
that go to those games. I would say it like this. If there is the appetite to clean out Lehigh the same way that they've changed the coach here and will eventually clean out with the Flyers, then wait until you get the NHL coach and get his opinion on the AHL coach, because he may have somebody in mind. He may have somebody he works well with, somebody that's in another organization that they could get. You kind of wait for those opportunities. So there's more cohesiveness like there hasn't been here.
I think so. It's going to be a very interesting month or so when the season ends and what changes take place
Oh, yeah.
and
Our
if and when
season's
they.
not going to end.
Nope, we will have a lot to talk about then. And speaking of us, there were some really cute comments from a couple of people I thought I'd bring up over on our YouTube channel related to when Russ records from his car post game at the Wells Fargo Center. He is kind of in the dark a little bit on the YouTube side of things. And so Michael said, I love Darth Russ in the shadows. And then Todd Gersh replied, and Rachel Skywalker in the light. And I will take that any day of the week.
Yeah. That's great.
Very good reference there. So thanks for that, y'all. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to dig into Carson Bjarnason's season and check in on Jack Berglund, two promising Flyers prospects, and talk about Lyndon Lakovich. So really excited to do that. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got questions or comments about the Flyers, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.